Hi, I have a confession to make. I forgot to start this when I started. I'm really sorry. I've also got something good. I've got your flash drive back there. That doesn't help you. So I'm going to back up just a little bit. I'm not going to back all the way up because they're all going to glaze over. They already are and fall asleep if I start at the very beginning. We're just kind of reviewing um, the, the facts of the reliability of the Bible, that it all hangs together, even though it was written over 1,500 years and by more than 40 different authors, and it tells one continued story, the story of the redemption of mankind through Jesus Christ. So the Bible is telling us how God reached out to us, not how we can reach out to God. And then we talked about um, the bibliographical test, which is comparison of ancient manuscripts. That's called textual criticism, and how similar, how identical they are, which is the very crazy thing, the very unusual thing that they're so similar. And then we just finished talking about internal evidence, prophecy, the prophecies of the Old Testament that have come true, show the veracity, show the truthfulness of the Bible. And then archaeology is listed as an internal test, but I think archaeology is more an external test. And over again, archaeological finds corroborate the story of the Bible. And then we have external evidence, which is the works in literature that talk about the Bible at about the time of the Bible. You've got Josephus, Flavius Josephus, writing history not long after Jesus died, and certainly around the time the New Testament was being written, and shortly after the time that the New Testament was being written, and he tells the same basic storyline as the other as the Bible does. And then we're going to talk about Eusebius in just a second here. So we also look at the number of manuscripts that we have. And the more manuscripts, the more reliable what is written can be. So I'm going to just read through a few of these manuscripts that we have. So of everything that Caesar wrote from 100 to Julius Caesar, from 100 to 44 BC, the earliest copy was found from AD 900, which is about 1,000 years after Julius Caesar lived. Do you want to know how many copies we have of his writings? You have it written there. 10. Plato, there's a gap of 1,200 years, and we have 7 copies of Plato. Sophocles, we have 193 copies, and there's a 1,400-year span between those. Aristotle, there's a 1,400-year span, and we have 49 copies of things he wrote. The second place, the first runner-up, the second place number of manuscripts is the Iliad by Homer. And the earliest copy comes from 400 BC, which is a 500-year span, and there's 643 copies. Compare all of that to the Bible, where the earliest copy is from 125 AD, which is about 25 years from the original writings, a little bit more, and we have over 24,000 copies of the New Testament. It's not even close. And yet, does anyone say, Julius Caesar didn't exist? Homer didn't write the Iliad? That's just a fairy tale. But that Homer wrote it is just a fairy tale. But they do that with the Bible, and I would contend that they do that not because they have a case, or the case for the Bible is bad. I think they do that because they don't want the Bible to be true. They don't want to have to kneel before Jesus in their lives. And then I know Danisha talked about the prophecies, that there are literally dozens of prophecies of Messiah in the Old Testament, 48, I think, in total. Some of them, the Jews in the Old Testament, knew that those were prophecies looking forward to Messiah. You hear, people saying to Jesus, well, when Messiah comes, in fact, the woman at the well says, when Messiah comes, we know he will, lead us into the truth. And Jesus says, I who talk to you, and he. So some of those prophecies were known to be messianic prophecies. Some weren't. Some the disciples realized after the fact, and they look back at something like Psalm 22 and go, that's a description. And so some of them were realized to be prophecies after Jesus lived and died. So there are 48 Old Testament prophecies, and Janisha talked to you about what is the probability that one person living out through all of time could fulfill 8 prophecies made before that person was born. And the probability of that is 1 in 10 to the power of 17. And she told you that concept model. If you take silver dollars and you cover the state of Texas 2 feet deep in silver dollars, and you put a mark on one of them and throw it in the pile randomly. Now, she said in San Antonio. No, that would change the probability. She said drop the blind guy in San Antonio. No, that would make a better probability. You randomly throw it in. You randomly drop a blindfolded guy or a blind guy that can't see somewhere in Texas. Tell him he can walk as far as he wants, but he can only pick up 1 coin. And the chance that one person throughout all of history could fulfill 8 prophecies is the same as that guy picking up the coin on the first try. So what if we take it out to 16 prophecies, twice as many prophecies? The concept for that is now you have, and I'm saying this one because I don't think she explained it very well. Now you've made a ball of coins. It's all made out of coins. And you just assume that you can make a ball out of coins without gluing them together, because you're going to have to be able to pick one of them, right? So there's this ball of coins. The radius of that ball of coins is 30 times the distance from the Earth to the sun. The distance of the Earth to the sun is about 92 million miles. So you have just created a ball made of silver dollars that is 2.8 trillion miles wide. And the chance that one person who has lived throughout times, anywhere in time, could fulfill 16 of those prophecies is the same as that poor blind man picking up the marked coin, the 1 marked coin thrown into that ball on the first try. And if you try to come up with some sort of concept model for the chances of all 48 being fulfilled by one person, there's no concept model for that. We can't even think in those terms. It's literally absurd. It's bigger than we can grasp. Just to give you an idea that the literal probability, by the way, of filling all 48 is 1 in 10 to the 157. The number of total atoms in the universe is about 10 to the power of 66. About a third of that number, that other probability. And the number of seconds in 10 billion years is 10 to the power of 17, which is the same as 8 prophecies. So it would be scientifically absurd for one person. The probability would be scientifically absurd for one person to have fulfilled 48 prophecies. And yet, and then the last thing I want to talk to you about are these early church fathers. So Eusebius, well, let me start with John. John, the Apostle John, had a disciple, had someone who he taught. He was a mentor to. That was Papias. He had many, but let's just talk about Papias. Sounds like a fruit, I know, but it was a name. And he had a disciple named Eusebius. And a lot of what we know about John's gospel comes from Eusebius. John told Papias, who told Eusebius. Do you think Eusebius is a good source of information on John? Let me relate it to something. My mother's name was Georgianne Dutton, Georgianne Dutton Colliday. She was born Georgianne Lou Dutton, Lane Allen Dutton, and Frances Riley Dutton. My mother told me that my grandfather was a lawyer and a judge, and at some point he got this child custody case, and I don't know if he won that case or lost that case, but it was appealed, and it was appealed again, and it was appealed again, and eventually it was appealed to the United States Supreme Court. My grandfather won that case. Now, do you think I'm a good, assuming I'm not a lawyer, right? Do you think I'm a good source of that information? No. Because my mother told me I'm not an eyewitness to it. My mother, I don't think, was an eyewitness to it. But her father was an eyewitness to it. It's the same thing as John telling Papias telling Eusebius. And in fact, after my mother died, I was going through her papers. It was a long time after my mother died. It was about at the point that if it wasn't necessary for us to have it, we could throw it away. I found the court brief from the Supreme Court. My grandfather won that case. I'm a reliable source on that. Not just because I have the paper. Now, the paper backs it up, right? We've got other proofs of the veracity, of the truthfulness of the Bible. But I am not far removed. I knew my grandfather. I remember my grandfather. I'm not that far removed from him. Just like you're not that far. I'm sure your parents have told you stories about your grandparents, right? And you believe that. I would be foolish. We have, as I've told you before, a reasoned faith. We do not have a blind faith. We have good reason to believe what we believe. Now, I'm going to take a little bit of a hard right turn here. I'm going to hand out to you several things. These will be in teams, hopefully today, hopefully before I leave here today. Probably should have said this before. Don't turn it off because I want you to hear the explanation of what we're doing. Now, this is the explanation of the what am I trying to say? The project you're doing with this for this lesson. There's that. Thank you. And then finally, this is the rubric for the project. It's not Partners. I thought it was, but it's not. That's a psychology. Oh. That's not. So Dr. Michael Kruger, who is a pastor, wrote this series of blogs on the reliability of Scripture. 10 blogs in all. It's called 10 Basic Facts About the New Testament Canon That Every Christian Should Memorize. These are not the blogs themselves, they're the titles of the blog. So I'm going to read through these, but tomorrow you're going to choose which one you're going to do. And I don't want everybody doing the same one. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. We're missing Matt. And Daniel. So we will have about 4 that will repeat, but all of them will be covered. So when we go through and choose, you'll pick numbers, and so we'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you have to pick 1 through 10. And then when we repeat them, then you'll be able to repeat just one time. You can't, once that one's been taken a second time, then that's it. So here are the topics of this. Number 1 is the New Testament. So these are all, well, I'll start. For the last month or so, I have been working through a new series on the New Testament canon designed to help Christians understand 10 basic facts about its origins. This series is designed to lay a level audience and hopefully could prove helpful in conversation one might have with a skeptical friend. Given that there are already 4 installments in this series, I thought it would be helpful to have them listed in one spot. So here they are. The New Testament books are the earliest Christian writings we possess. Apocryphal writings, all apocryphal means is outside of Scripture. There is an apocrypha that the Catholic Church recognizes, not as on the same par as Scripture, because apocrypha means outside of Scripture, right? So so if I write a book on John, the Gospel of John, that is an apocryphal writing. Anything outside of Scripture is apocryphal. So that's all that means. Apocryphal writings, like the Gospel of Thomas, the Gospel of Judas, all those apocryphal writings are all written in the 2nd century or later. The New Testament books are unique because they are apostolic books. They were written by apostles in nearly every. Some New Testament writers some New Testament writers quote other New Testament writers as Scripture. The 4 Gospels are well established by the end of the 2nd century. At the end of the 2nd century, the Muratorian fragment lists 22 of our 27 New Testament books. Early Christians often used non-canonical writings. The New Testament canon was not decided at Nicaea or any other church council. Christians did disagree about the canonicity of some New Testament books, and then early Christians believed that canonical books are self-authenticating. So tomorrow you will choose which one of these you're going to do, and then I will give you the actual article, the actual blog post. So what is it that you're doing then? That's this page. Read the blog post by Dr. Michael Kruger. You're not going to read all 10 of them. You're going to read one of the 10, okay? And they're short. The longest one, I think, is like 2.5 pages. They're not long articles, blog posts. Write at least 2 paragraphs, approximately 1 page summary of the fact presented in the blog about the New Testament canon. Include why you think the fact is or is not compelling evidence for the reliability of the New Testament. In other words, answer the following question. Does this fact support the canonicity of the 27 books of the New Testament? Why or why not? Present your findings to the class. You may feel free to read your written report, or you may create a separate presentation. So grading for this, each portion, the written part and the oral part, will be worth 20 points. So you're going to write the summary and you're going to present your summary. This will count as, so 40 points in total. This will count as the test grade for lesson 4. Your written portion will be graded on content. Did you write a clear and complete summary of the fact? Be graded on neatness, spelling, punctuation, and grammar. Your oral portion will be graded on presentation. Did you give a clear, compelling presentation? Clarity of speech, can I hear and understand you? And grammar. And then finally, let's look at this rubric. I'm not going to go through it bit by bit, but if you want 100%, you need to do the left column. You need to do all of those things. The juniors just wrote their letter to an atheist, and a whole bunch of them didn't bother to read what they were supposed to do or read the rubric, and it really messed them up. So don't do that. Make sure you know what you're doing. If you have questions, please ask those questions. So tomorrow you will choose and you will get your blog post. The rest of the hour you can work on it. Wednesday, that's tomorrow is Wednesday. Thursday, you will have the whole hour to work on it. Friday, you will have the whole hour to work on it. And then on Monday, you will give your presentation. Once you give your presentation, you will hand in your written presentation. And then on Tuesday, Wesley Farewell is going to bid farewell to this lesson, telling us more about the reliability. Now, I haven't saw it. Toby.
Did you say you're going to give us the lessons tomorrow?
Right. So once you pick it, let's say you pick number 1. I'll hand you number 1. Okay?
Now or?
Tomorrow. Yes.
So you can read your written report. Do you have to memorize it? Like, are you going to get like send off in a presentation?
No, you can read it. You can read it. Okay. But if you're reading it like this, the historicity of the Bible is true. You know, that's problematic because you will be graded on how well you present, not just the content, but how well you present. Okay? Can it be what? Oh yeah, absolutely. It can be typed or handwritten, but if it's handwritten, it better be legible because you'll be graded on it. Okay, that's it for today. Bye, Matt.
Did we get out of class early?
Dude,
No.
make me cry.
That's too late.